a couple of years ago, hiring a software developer was one of literally the hardest things you could do. It sounds like it's resetting a bit, and there is as much competition for a software developer role as sort of any other type of role, do you think?
Yeah, competition is quite high right now. As we know, like there have been a lot of layoffs, like from some top tier companies like Meta, Google, and there are lots of engineers which are like unemployed right now.
What do you look for in software developer CVs?
I just asked one question, like it helps us to know like how you handle teamwork, how you handle conflict and project management.
But what are your top 3 recommendations for any software developer who's actively looking for their next role?
Top 3 recommendations would be like
Welcome to another episode of the Open to Work podcast. I'm super excited today to introduce Chetan Vyas. He's a recruiter at Deel and he specializes in software engineering hiring around the world. So Chetan, welcome to the Open to Work podcast.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. It's great to be here, and I'm excited for this podcast. Also, like I hope like there will be great insights in this podcast for your listeners as well. So thanks for welcoming me.
No, absolute pleasure. And also, Chetan is a community leader for our Open to Work community. So if you are part of that community or you're interested in joining the community of job seekers, where we kind of get in and help kind of job seekers all around the world, like Chetan is going to be one of the many amazing people that's going to be offering advice. So if you're, if you like what you see and listen and hear today, then there's plenty more of that to come from the Open to Work community. But let's get straight into it, Chetan. So as we do with every kind of starter, every kind of call here on the Open to Work podcast, tell me about yourself as if you were in an interview.
Sure. So great question, and I will answer that for sure. So my name is Chetan, and I'm based in Delhi. I have done my BTech in computer science from IPS College, and I started my first job as a software engineer. And within like 3 months, I have realized that coding is not my thing. So I moved into tech recruiting. I started my journey from agencies, and I was supporting like some clients in USA. So initially, I was only supporting like North America client, and also like I've done some hiring in APAC as well. Then I moved to like in-house recruitment. I have moved to Revolut and joined their technical team, and there I was supporting for like product hiring, technical hiring, and for other roles as well, like roles in ops, product ops. So there were lots of roles which I was supporting, but mainly for like EMEA region and APAC region. And like within like 1 year, I have moved into search firm where like we were supporting C2C D startups, and there I have gained a lot of experience. Like I have learned a lot of new things because I was supporting startups, working directly tech founders who have recently raised funds. So I've learned a lot of things there, and most of the tech hiring I have done there. And recently, like when we have wrapped up all the projects, so I have started at Deel as a senior recruiter, and here I'm also working in like the technical team. So that's all about like my professional background.
Nice, thank you for that. I think one of the couple of things that kind of really stands out to me about kind of Chetan's background for anyone who's kind of not looking at this with a recruiting mindset is that you studied in computer science, which is just really rare for a technical recruiter. And I think I'd love to hear your perspective, but it feels like that probably gives you a really good advantage in understanding
Exactly.
what your software developers are actually doing.
Exactly, because like I've done 4 years into studying. The thing is different that I haven't went into that path, but also like it gives me an edge. Like while I'm recruiting, while I'm seeing CVs, it gives me an edge. Like I can tell the profile like from what background they are coming, what technical technology they are working on, and yeah, like it's quite helpful for me.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, you've worked for some mega brands, right? Revolut is, obviously one of the kind of biggest, neobanks in
Yeah.
the world. Deel is probably one of the fastest growing technology companies that we've seen in the last kind of decade that focuses on hiring and enabling hiring all around the world and employment for people all around the world. So in like the world of remote work, like Deel is about as relevant as a company as you could be working for. And then also, hiring in some of the like powerhouses of the world, like regions of the world, right? Like India is one of the biggest technical hiring regions. The USA is one of the biggest technical hiring regions in the world. So probably very few, you had an amazing exposure through those two kind of roles and those two regions that you've been supporting.
Exactly. And as I was into global hiring, so it also gives me like an idea what type of talent in what region And apart from that, joining Revolut in my early days have also given me an edge because like where I have learned a lot of about recruiting. And when I was there in 2021, our team was rated by LinkedIn that like LinkedIn number one talent acquisition team. So I've learned a lot from Revolut, and apart from that, like I've worked with the startups as well, and that also helps me in, a lot in learning more because I will be working in startup, I had full ownership. I was talking to like tech founders and learning a lot of things about their startups and also like what they are looking. So this is like a great mix I have had, and I'm learning like best for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that really stands out. Like, let's start with kind of really the basics. Obviously, we said that like kind of recruiting, having a software development background and kind of a computer science background, I think, could really gives you that edge.
Mhm.
But why do you think it's so? Why do you think that's giving you that edge?
Sure. So great question. Actually, like the software development job market is unique in many ways. Like first off, the demand for the tech like developers is incredibly high rather than like other jobs. Apart from that, like the pace in the pace like the technology is changing is like relentless. And unlike other fields where like traditional qualification must be enough, if you are a developer, then you need to constantly like update your skills, constantly update your learnings, and adapt to new tools, programming languages, and also frameworks. So employers looking for like problem solving abilities like for software developers. And if you have like those abilities, if you have strong portfolio, it's a fast-paced competitive environment where like you can consistency is the key here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've done my fair share of software development hiring, and I think that one of the
Hmm.
biggest challenges I've had, because I'm not technical by kind of nature and background, is that this does it is a different language, right? It's a whole different world. Like the way that you hire and engage with this sort of talent is totally different from how you hire the rest of the business, really. And so being able to speak to like why this language is the right development language, why they have developed these skills, like how they think about solving these like very complex technical problems, and being able to understand that and then kind of work even with hiring managers. Like I found that that's really where I struggled the most, without being technical, is that a hiring manager would say, I want someone with these sorts of skills and with these sorts of technical languages, and I wouldn't really know what to say to them or like how to push back or whether that was a realistic thing that they were looking for.
Yeah, that's the thing I have seen with my colleagues as well, like who come from non-tech background, and when they join like tech recruiting. So that's the thing, like they need to learn like those languages, they need to learn those concepts from scratch because like when hiring managers, like when we engage with engineering managers, they often talk in high level and they didn't like go into that depth. So we need to like talk to them if we have the knowledge of like that framework, that technology, then definitely like we can ask questions in depth and we can like find a better fit for that position. So yeah, it's quite helpful like that I have come from that background.
Mm.
But apart from that, I have learned a lot along the way. Like learning a lot new technologies and what's going on into the tech market, like
Yeah.
subscribing newsletters. So that's the thing like which helped me a lot.
Yeah, you have to make sure that, yeah, because the market is moving so quickly, you have
Exactly.
to make sure that you're also learning so that you can
Yeah.
understand. If someone's saying, "Oh, I've got kind of 10 years experience in this kind of machine learning language," you're like, "Hang on a second, that only really kind of came through 2 years ago." And I think there's lots of recruiter memes that
Yeah.
said, "I want someone with 7 years experience of X language." And like, well, actually, that language was only created 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so let's start then, wind it right back to the beginning. So you're a recruiter. Like what do you look for in software developer CVs? So Alderson James are one of the leading people and talent agencies. Since 2013, they've been responsible for over 1,000 people and talent hires, including one in a company that I used to work at. They helped me hire my head of technology TA. So I know the guys there pretty well. They've been responsible for scaling some of the most innovative companies in the UK and the EU. Also recently just launched in the US. So even folks in your neck of the woods now, James, can get involved for contingent, retained, and executive search. And they also now do embedded through AJX. So they can do it all.
Okay, so when it comes to like SWCV, a few elements really make a difference for me. Like whether they have defined the technologies in their resume or their LinkedIn, like on what technology they are working on. Example, like I have seen a lot of profiles on LinkedIn, like who have mentioned they are working as a software engineer, but they haven't defined like on what skills they are working on. They're working on Node.js, they're working on Java, they haven't defined anything. So just suppose if I have to hire that guy, like who I mentioned, software engineer, and he is a Node.js software developer, and I'm hiring for a Node.js role, but they don't have mentioned in their resume, then how I will hire them? Like how I will know that on what technologies they are working? So this
Yeah,
is the major thing. Like they need to mention the framework. The programming languages, the databases they are using. So if I have the knowledge of like my job description and I can see that in their resume, then that really stands out for me. Apart from that, there's one thing which gives you an edge, which is like you are doing open source contributions. Apart from that, you have a GitHub profile or you have your own website and a strong portfolio. So these are things like which helps you in out in this competitive market. And these are like the major things which I see. Apart from that, like while interviewing, I also try to get like whether they have good problem solving skills or not.
yeah,
But looking at resume, these two things have like mainly important for me.
yeah.
First one
And so,
is like,
yeah, so and so do you look at, the so you've got, their tech stacks essentially that they've worked with, and
Mhm,
the different technical programming languages and stuff like that they've worked with in the past and that they're expert in. They've got their GitHub profiles basically is something,
mhm.
maybe like a Stack Overflow as well. And so what about kind of the actual like text? Are you looking at some of the projects that they've worked on, like size and scale of company? Like
Yeah.
how important is that sort of stuff to you?
Yeah, so when I will be looking into their GitHub, I will see like how consistent they are. Like I will see the consistency because it is mentioned on GitHub, like how often they are coming and like solving the problems. Apart from that, what I see like on what kind of repos they are contributing. So like if they are working on like suppose I'm hiring a TypeScript software engineer like who is good in TypeScript, then I will find out like what repos are trending right now, and I will go into those repos. I will see like who are the top contributors, and I will reach out to them. So this is the way like I can get the best talent in TypeScript because already like they are working on trending stuff. So if you are doing similar thing, like if you're a TypeScript developer, if you're a Java developer, and if you are going into those trending repos, you are doing contributions consistently, then that really helps me like
Yeah. Um, do you, just so that for kind of my reference, like, do you hire people who don't contribute at all to get to things like GitHub? Does that happen often?
Yeah, that happens, but it doesn't give them age. But if you're a good problem solver and if you
Yeah,
have good experience, then we definitely give you a chance.
yeah,
Then if you crack those like tasks, those interviews, then
yeah.
definitely you will be getting hired. But like if you're already solving problems on GitHub, then it will be easier to like crack
Got it.
those home tasks and like those interviews.
Yeah, yeah. And so, if you aren't contributing on GitHub, like, what are there any like tools or platforms out there that you can use to practice take home tests? We are delighted to be sponsored by MetaView. MetaView is the AI assistant for the interview process. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations like interviews, intakes, and debriefs, and then provides a perfectly summarized note of everything that was discussed. That means that you can focus on creating human connections with candidates during calls and save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. I've spoken to so many recruiters and recruiting leaders who are loving using MetaView across their organizations. It's saving them time, but it also means that they have more data to make better decisions. So for every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can now make confident and informed decisions, and recruiters can finally take control of the interview process. The impact on candidate experience is also massive. Since recruiters don't have to worry about taking notes in the moment, they can really focus on being present and engaged with you. Forward-thinking recruiters at high-performing organizations like Brex, HelloFresh, and Quora are all leveling up their interviews with MetaView. So head on over to metaview.ai/open to work to get started for free on your first 5 calls.
So one of the platform which is like quite popular in India and like other locations as well is Lead Code. So lots of people are moving from like GitHub to Lead Code because like it's getting more traction and it's easier to use for the developers.
Is that lead code?
Yeah, Lead
Yeah.
Code.
And then, what I'm super interested though in like, what is the impact of kind of co-pilot coding softwares on like things like I guess like ChatGPT, but also there'll be loads of others as well on technical assessment.
So yeah, lots of people use that, but what I have found like from hiring managers, if you are using that like quite a lot, then it will be reflecting in your like solution and like the hiring managers will know because like they have already done those kind of things and they are like very much into the depth of those problems. So
Mm,
if you are using it like a lot, if you are just using it for hints, then it's fine. But if you are like solving the whole problem like using ChatGPT, then I think like it will be get caught by hiring
yeah.
managers.
Because we write on LinkedIn quite a lot, and
Hmm.
you can always tell who. I think most of the time you can tell when content is
Exactly.
written by ChatGPT or similar. There are fingerprints on it for the trained eye,
Yeah.
and I guess if you're in this every single day, they know it. They know what that looks like as well because they probably
Yeah.
asked it to. And they probably,
100%.
most. I imagine, like if I was going to be doing some sort of a software engineering test, and I was the hiring manager, I'd go and see what the response would be from ChatGPT just to check, so that I knew what it would look like when it came to me. Yeah, so I think
Hmm.
you will get found out, and a lot of. Am I correct in saying that a lot of tests nowadays, and most companies that I've worked in, have done code pairing exercises? So like you literally have a screen share that you're given a problem
Hmm.
for, and they want you to what they want to watch you go through and solve coding problems. Is that still really common?
Yeah, that's still very common. Like mostly in startups, not in like bigger companies. But I think like for it totally depends on companies to companies. Like in
Yeah,
Deal,
of
it
course.
doesn't happen. In Revolut, it doesn't used to happen. But in some startup where I have worked, like it happens frequently. Like they give you a problem and you need to solve it live.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And would I be correct in saying that completing the task is not as important as showing your workings?
Yeah, I think like it's 50-50. I will not
Okay.
like go at one side because like both aspects are important here.
Yeah, because kind of coming back to this problem solving, and I think some of the companies, it's not my specialism, but some of the companies I've worked with have had really hard coding challenges. But really, what they're
Hmm.
looking for and how they kind of rank their software developers, are you a software developer one versus a software developer three,
Hmm.
is their how they think about solving the problem and what other things they connect the solving of that problem to, and that's how they end up doing the internal ranking system. So it's not necessarily like did you get the one right answer, and there sometimes
Hmm.
isn't a one right answer, but it's how did you approach the overall problem
Yeah.
and solve that and think about the overall problem. That's what I've observed in those scenarios. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. Like if a problem is quite difficult and your approach is right, then you will definitely have more chances to get selected. But if a problem is not that different, it's an average problem and your approach is right, but it's still not solved, then
Yeah,
like the hiring manager expect like these problems need to be solved.
yeah.
Because everyone knows like what's the level of that problem.
Yeah, of course, because it could be that this is something that someone who's at this level should be able to solve within this time frame, and
Yeah.
that's partly what they're testing towards, like your speed of work and thinking and stuff like that as well. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then so you've gone and done your like coding technical test. Do you get for the other? Because you said that typically each interviewer focuses on a different technical expertise. Do you expect to see other types of coding through those tests, through those interviews, or is it more of a conversation?
So, like for the team interviews, it is much more about like communication and cultural fit. But they definitely like talk about your technical skills and your tech background. But they most like they start with understand like telling you how the team looks like, what problems we are currently solving, and then after that, like they come to your technical background, like what you have done, and then it's more about like cultural fit and communication. So while you are doing like those team interviews, always like research the project the team is working on. Like if you are interviewing for a certain company, just go on LinkedIn, like what engineering managers are like solving, because like in every LinkedIn profile, they mention on what projects they are working. So while having your call with recruiter, just get to know like in for what role they are hiring, for what product they are hiring. then research on LinkedIn that about the team who is working on that product, and research like what DB they are using, research what tools they are using, what programming languages are they using. And if your research is perfect, then that will definitely help you in the interview. And apart from that, like you need to clearly explain your thought process as well, like demonstrating how you approach the problem solving, and so that you can collaborate effectively, prepare for behavioral questions as well, because like in team interviews, these kind of questions asked very often. So it helps us to know like how you handle teamwork, how you handle conflict and project management. So it's important to show that you are not just technically capable, but also a good fit for the team as well.
Yeah, and then let's talk a bit about the kind of team fit. I mean, my again, like my observation as someone from the outside is that really like you can be an incredible developer, but if you're not able to kind of communicate your ideas you're not able to kind of play well with others, that can be a massively impactful to your like broader kind of
Yeah.
career growth. How do you? I mean, you've given some good tips, but like, what's your observation on that, and how do you kind of prepare for these sorts of cultural fit interviews? Do you think?
Yeah, so for this, like we often like ask questions. I just ask one question, like tell me a product where like you have collaborated efficiently, and what impact you have done in that product, and how like you have like tell a product like where you have convinced someone like to work on those things, like those features, like if you have worked on. So this is the like question I ask. Then it's on developer like what they respond. Sometimes they respond quite well. That like I have convinced my project manager or my engineering manager, and like team has built that product, that feature, and then they provide the data that like it has in like getting this much revenue, this much customer traction. So
Mm-hmm.
like this is the question I ask normally.
Yeah. And do you still support using things like the STAR method, situation, task, action, result, to describe those stories if you're and prepare for those stories if you're a software developer? Does that still apply?
Yeah, like it really helps. Like when I do like interview preps, I tell the candidate like always use STAR, because like it's quite it gives a better idea about like what they have done. So
Yeah.
yeah, STAR methodology is great.
Yeah, so because what you're kind of describing there is, it's really similar. When you get, sounds like the kind of when we look at the kind of differences, I guess, between software development and other kind of types of assessing, really like you have this kind of quite very technical side of what you're doing, where they're trying to assess like, can you do this very specific skill that we're looking for, code in this language X Y Z. Think about problem solving in this very specific way. But then it comes down to like standard ways of interviewing. So like all of the other ways that you prepare and that other candidates prepare for other parts of business still apply. So for example, tell me a time about when you collaborated with another team to solve a really big problem. Like that's exactly the sort of interview you would get in any other part of the business. And so using the situation, task, action, result, response can still be a tool that you can use to get yourself ahead. So whilst you may think that different rules apply for software development, sounds like actually a lot of the core concepts of preparation still apply.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe give us a sense of like the competition that is happening on the back end right now. So like you're obviously trying to hire some of the best developers in the world. We've got a market in the rest of the market. There's still kind of people are still struggling to get access to jobs. Maybe give me a sense of like what is happening in the software development market right now, and kind of how many roles I guess are out there. Like, is it still really competitive? Like, what's the landscape?
Yeah, so like competition is quite high right now, because as we know, like there have been a lot of layoffs like from some top tier companies like Meta, Google, and there are lots of engineers which are like unemployed right now. So the competition is quite high, and people like the candidates who are solving problems regularly, who are working freelance, or who are like not offhand right now, they often like solve the problems for the companies. They often get the interviews. Somebody like who is doing good, like who is mentioning everything in their CV, like into data points, and also like I mentioned their technologies and everything. They often get the interview. Somebody who is not doing it, like they are not getting the interview. They are not. how they will get the job, like if they will not get the interview. So yeah, competition is quite high, and anyone who is doing open source contributions, anyone who is solving problems regularly, anyone who is like who have maintained their LinkedIn profile, who have maintained their CVs, have highlighted their achievements, they are like not unemployed right now.
Yeah, I think it's so it sounds like it's a couple of years ago, hiring a software developer was one of literally the hardest things you could do,
Yeah.
and it was extraordinarily competitive. The salary inflation was significant because of how competitive the market was. But it sounds like that's doing a kind of, not saying that salaries are inflated at the moment, but it sounds like it's resetting a bit, and that there is as much competition for a software developer role as sort of any other type of role. Do you think?
Exactly, and the market is resetting. But what I have found out, like the developers who are like good problem solvers and who do open source contributions and like who are some A players, they are all still getting like high salaries. They are
Yeah.
still demanding the salaries like which was they were demanding like 2 years back. So yeah, like market is resetting. I 100% support that. But like there are some people who is still like in demand.
Yeah, I think really one of my takeaways from this is like, if you're a software developer, one of the most important things you can do is stay active on GitHub. Like it
Yeah.
just seems like that is an absolute no-brainer for being noticed by some of the best software developers in the world, for potentially finding your next opportunity. And I think that, and also, I mean, we talk about this idea of staying positive in your job search by working on projects. And I think if you're a software developer who's not naturally thinking, I really, really want to solve problems, I really want to go and work on some other side projects, like that's probably a red flag for me if I'm a recruiter, because or if I'm a business, because that should be like the immediate go to for any software developer who's not like full time work.
Yeah, 100%. And while I was doing like a startup hiring, what I have noticed that I have found some, like I have sourced some people from LinkedIn who are working in great companies, have great resumes, and they have interviewed for the role. And I have also sourced from GitHub somebody like who is fresher, who haven't done any work. And when both of these candidates have interviewed, I have seen like lots of the time the fresher who is active on GitHub, like contributing in projects, gets the role. So I think like it doesn't matter like from which companies you're coming from. The thing matters like you're staying active, like you're doing problem solving every day.
It's almost into some respects like a bit more equitable in how people are assessed, right? Like you either have the skills or you don't have the skills, and there's a binary, which I think other parts of because we use so much in interview based hiring and stuff like that in other parts of the business, we don't have this like objective measure of like, this is what a good software developer is or isn't. And I think if you are listening to this as a recruiter, I think becoming really active and understanding how to use GitHub to help find talent seems like it's super important. And I don't know that many recruiters out there that are probably as active in looking for software development talent on GitHub as you are. So it's if you have any questions, I guess, about this, reach out to Chetan. Sounds like he's the master.
Yeah, like it definitely gives me an edge as a recruiter as well, because like if somebody is sourcing somebody from LinkedIn and like suppose like as I mentioned already, like that example of TypeScript developer, so somebody is sourcing from like LinkedIn and I'm going into TypeScript repo, then I know this guy is hands-on and he will crack the home task. So definitely like I get lots of hype through GitHub, and like it's a great strategy.
Okay, awesome. So I guess just to round us out then, what are your, I think I know what these are going to be, and I think we're going to be recapping really, but what are your top three recommendations for any software developer who's actively looking for their next role?
Okay, so top three recommendations would be like always highlight your technical skills in your resume, like on what technology you're working on, and as well as on LinkedIn as well. And always stay active and have a strong portfolio. If you're not like staying active, but try to like do it once a week or like once a month, and have like a good GitHub following as well. And the third would be like having great problem solving abilities, and like be good in communication as well, like not only in technical things, because when you will be doing team interviews, those will be cultural fit interviews, behavioral interviews. So these three things like will be most important, like for getting an interview, GitHub, and like highlighting your skills in your CV. And for the cracking those like team interviews, it will be like communication and problem solving.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think with the interviewing section,
Hmm.
using ChatGPT to get an insight into what sort of questions you can expect, and asking it prompts like, imagine I'm interviewing for a software developer and they want to ask me questions about my communication style and how I've collaborated with other teams. What behavioral interview questions should I expect? Or like, give me 10 behavioral interview questions, and then practice responding to those.
Yeah,
And you just practice. Like with anything, like you're not going to all of a sudden, just because you don't all of a sudden become good at software development. You get there because you practice, and you
exactly.
interviewing and responding to interview questions is its own skill, which you need to hone over time. And so, if you are active, again, like stay active in going through the questions, practicing responding. Have your friend listen to you, like record yourself, like write down a couple of example responses, and that will really increase your chances of getting hired. Even if you're an amazing software developer, if you can't communicate how you solve these problems to other people, it's really going to limit
Exactly.
your ability to get hired.
Exactly, and that's a great strategy. Like if you can find out those questions through ChatGPT, like or through your seniors, or you can find it on Google as well, and you can
Yeah,
prepare for those, then definitely like that will help a lot. And if you're not doing it, if you're giving like 50 interviews, you can learn from those interviews as well. Like just
yeah.
try to get all the questions which you were asked in previously, like in different team interviews, and just practice those questions.
Yeah, I think that is such actually a good recommendation for anyone. Is that when you like, as soon as you log off from an interview, take like 2 minutes just to try and remember as many of the questions that they've asked you as possible, and then practice them, because they're probably going to be
100%.
asked to you again.
Yeah, 100%.
These interviews are not that different, right? Like 90% of them sit within like a normal distribution. It's very narrow, and so you can probably work out what you're going to get asked, and you repeat the same answers over and over again, and you'll get better at them and better at them and more natural.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, this is all going to be a really. We're going to have like interview questions and stuff like that in the community, which you can practice, which will be really, really interesting. And then like you can practice with your fellow community members. I think that's one of like the real powers of it. But I think having tracking everything is really underrated in a job search,
Yeah.
and not that many people do it because I guess they hope in their heart of hearts that they're going to have that one interview shot, and then that's going to be a job, and they never have to do this again. But actually,
Yeah.
building up these banks. And the last thing I would say is, ask for help. Like if you're a software developer, you probably have worked with some really good managers in the past. Reach out to them and say like, hey, do you have like a couple of example interview questions that you're asking people at the moment in your role? Or like reach out to like Chetan and say like, hey, do you have a couple of examples of interview questions that you see coming up time and time again? Like they'll probably help. Like people do want to help in this market, especially if you're kind of a good person that's contributing to open source stuff. Like people will want to help, and so just ask. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised at how far that can really get you in this world.
Yeah. 100%. Everyone wants to help. Like if you can ask for it, you will get it. If you will not ask, you will not get it.
Exactly. Awesome. What a fantastic note to end on, Chetan. I really, I think I've learned a lot from this, and I really enjoyed the conversation. One of my takeaways is that actually, like, sometimes we think this kind of software development world is a bit of big, like, scary object that is really hard to get access to, and that it's completely different from how everyone else does it. But actually, there are so many similarities between how we hire software developers and how we hire in the rest of the business. Obviously, this deep technical expertise is very different, but really, like, the methodology behind like preparation, getting out there with your content, contributing, having a really good like skills based CV that's showing the impact that you've had on businesses, like all these things still apply. And if you're a software developer, like listen to these sorts of podcasts, go and ask questions, go and ask for help. Like it's actually be surprised at how similar the kind of the actions will be that you kind of need support on to anyone else out there.
Exactly, exactly. And it's also like great to be here and like say sharing these insights. And since we will be working like closely in future as well, so anyone like who will be seeing this podcast, anyone who need any help, just can like put me a DM and can sign up for like a community as well. So I will be directly available there as a job search advisor. And again, like it was great to be here, Matthew.
Fantastic. And so people can find you on LinkedIn, Chetan Vyas,
Yeah,
Vyas, is where to find you, right?
yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much. And from all of us here at Open to Work podcast, like if you have questions or you have topics that we kind of haven't got into yet in this podcast, please do write in at opentoworkpod@gmail.com. We're here to kind of answer your questions, and we want to make sure that every single episode is adding value or helping you in one way or another. And so if you feel like we haven't kind of answered your questions or we haven't kind of supported your kind of subsection of job search, then let us know, because we really, really want to help. And if you have friends of yours that are looking looking for their next opportunity, like share this podcast with them. Like, again, like this is the whole goal of this, is to be a free resource for everyone, regardless of whether or not you're in the community, or you're just tuning in online. Like, this is always going to be a free resource, this podcast, and hopefully will help you find your next job. So please love, like, share, and we'll catch you on the next episode.